I want to tell you a very personal story. A few years ago, and I'm calling it my printer moment. It was an ordinary day in the office. I had my cup of coffee. Actually, I don't like so much coffee, but I had the cup of coffee. And I was walking down the aisle and from my office. That time I was working with one of the biggest TV production companies in the world, with the local branch as MD. And I got to the printer, and I don't know if you've had this feeling that you know what you're doing, you have mission, but you are not really sure whether it's worth anything. How many of you have had this Monday morning cup of coffee, going to the printer and not being sure whether this is really worth spending your life with? Is it something that you kind of... Okay. Well, I was having one of these mornings. I had a great team, I mean great position, you know, nothing was wrong, but then I come to the printer and I don't even remember what I was printing, but one of my colleagues came and started to talk about this great new idea of, I think the idea was that why wouldn't we change our, pipeline and make this show which would be about youth who are in underdog position, and they would become great influencers. And actually she had written, the whole idea, the concept. And we were having stress with our sales goals, and I was like that, I can't take all this, information right now. I have to take these prints, I have to go and sell this show, and so on. But she just kept insisting on this idea, and I was like, please, I mean, it's too much, I have to go. But she just didn't give up. And I remember saying this sentence, which immediately when it came out of my mouth, I knew that this is not me, or this is not what I am for. But the sentence was something like this. The world is so cynical that no one will buy that show ever. And when she kept continued with the same idea, because she was convinced that this is important, this is something that why we are, I told a second sentence that started haunting me. And that was, if you keep continuing with that, maybe you should find another job. I've had a lot of these sentences in my life that I regret. Many people, they say that, when I die, I will regret those things that I didn't do, yeah? This is the cliche. Well, I will regret many of those things that I did. Many of those sentences I said. And this was one of them. And we departed. But my printer moment was that this moment started to haunting me. And in 2 months, 3 months, I went to the global president of this big media company and I resigned. And so what then? What happened with my printer moment? Well, no salary, no job. People were thinking that something is wrong with this guy because from this position he resigned. And in our field, when you resign from MD position, it means that you have personal crises and you are a little bit sick, or you've made some financial misuse of money or whatever. So suddenly you are the guy who no one wants to touch. But in a way I was happy. And I remember I wrote this personal, I didn't know what to do, and I wrote this personal note to myself. And there was 3 words. There was potential of youth. Then there was great influencers. And then there was the word of today, inclusivity. Is it inclusivity? Yeah. Inclusion. Inclusion. Probably that was the word that I wrote, inclusion. And soon after we formed a company called GUTSY. And there was just one idea that we would commit all our talent and work and everyone that came in to projects increasing peace. And through storytelling, through changing narrative, through media, through action. But basically from business point of view, we had no product. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have anything to sell. And that's an interesting position after 20 years of selling stuff. Luckily, someone had heard about this. And we got this phone call. Hello, this is police. And it was an industrial city, the chief police of industrial city, just an hour away from Helsinki, capital of Finland. And they said that it's the third gang fight among teenagers. They are racistly motivated and it's all over media. And the narrative of the city is just about violence at the moment. We've heard that you have this GUTSY thing and you are media professionals and you're maybe interested in youth as well. Can you do something with us? And we said, yes, sure, we know what we're doing. And I was like, geez, I have no idea what we're doing. And so we went there and they had really nice group, kind of team full of inclusion. There was the mayor, there was the NGO representatives, there were the police, the schools, the youth workers. And they were all kind of, maybe because it was so difficult, they had kind of, they weren't so proud of their own jurisdictions and whatever, but they had all come together. And they were just asking this question of what could we do? And having a really nice conversation of the crisis at hand, we then came up with the idea that that what should be done is actually work with the narrative. There's really negative narrative, which is built from backbiting of someone saying something which probably is a little bit true but not true, and it becomes a large amount of gossip in social media. And this had become an upheaval of a lot of aggressive and violent acts. And so it should be actually tackling the narrative and who should do it, not us, but the youth. So what we did was that we had this operation where all schools stopped their routines. We gathered all the 15 years old kids to one room. It's a huge, moment where everyone feels that we are here now and no one knows what's happening. I remember the bus drive to that morning, 6 o'clock. We've said that, yeah, we know what we're doing and let's just stop the schools here and gather everyone and let's just bring lots of cameras and it will all be right. And I was in my head that nothing will be right. We got these phone calls that we had these workshop facilitators. And two of them called that, yeah, we can't come, we feel sick and so on. And we're like, okay, the bus driver, maybe you can be the facilitator and maybe the doorman or whoever, And there's these 200 youth there waiting and sitting, and the mayor and the police and everyone. But the result was that when there was this urgency, suddenly people, they start to know why they are. And we were totally surprised when the youth started to word the story of their community, the story of inclusion. They started to talk about empathy, they started to talk about peace, they started to talk about solving the question of violence, about love. And what happened was that the gang fights, they finished, and just a few months ago we got another phone call from, hello, this is police. And that city had won the first prize in the European Crime Prevention Awards. Because in this communal coming together, giving the voice to people, putting a really strong challenge to everyone, they stood up for that. And it was amazing feeling. And what actually I want to show you this picture. Here are the youth. Maybe there are some adults also. But these are the ones that had this kind of label on them, that the violent youth of that city. Third gang fight and so on. And this is right after they've done the GUTSY sign that, yeah, we did it. After this experience, we were all kind of with a new mood, and we were thinking that, what if this could be done in every city in the world? Where should we start? Could there be, a nation that would train all of their youth to become peace builders? What are the essentials of understanding inclusion? What are the essentials of understanding peace building? And we immediately knew a few things. First of all, building peace, understanding peace is the most important thing in everyone's life. If there is anything that we should be concentrating on in our daily life, it is understanding how to create positive engagement among people, how to create peace. And that is what we should that's what we should rehearse all the time, that's what we should train to people, that's what we should do. So we thought that maybe we can create something that because the whole world, what we are good at, we are training people for war all the time, and we have a long experience of that. Really, technology, training methods, scalability, great. But what about if we would change this? And where are we now? After 18 months, 10 city locations, this is how it looks like.
Nobody is invincible on their own. But together, we can do literally anything. Massive results. We want to make sure that no one in our society is forgotten.
Oi, teitä on paljon. Tervetuloa.
Sehän meni hyvin.
Peace is born from the people who accept others just as they are.
Miten sinä haluat leikata?
Changing the world is everyone's job. We're always waiting on somebody else. But in reality, nothing is holding us back.
You don't have to wait for anything. Act now.
It's over 1,000 youth, 100 operations in different parts of Finland. And it's these youth, they're 14-year-old. Why did we choose 14, the age? Because people have not yet gone to different walks of life to study or to work or to drop out, but they are still all together in the primary school. Many were saying that this age group is too young. They still have to understand many things before they can be protagonists in something so important. But our experience is very, very different. Youth from 13, 14, 15, 16, they have great sense of mission. They have great yearn to to talk and act for what is right. They have great interest in understanding themselves, to have their own printer moments, to connect. And that's what makes them, and their prejudices are still very, light. They are ready to change their minds. They are ready to acquire new understanding of each other, of people they don't know, of the world, of people from all demographics. And these 100 projects we've seen now, they are done for elderly people, for children, for single moms and dads, for, you just name it, all different demographics. The idea of GUTSY GO is very simple. Not very easy, but very simple. You just gather the whole generation of an area. You challenge them, you give them a big challenge. You challenge them to change their reality, to change their both narrative and reality. Before the day is over, the first day is over, they are in groups of 8 to 10, and they don't know each other that time. But immediately they come up with observations of what's happening around them. Where is poverty? Where is the need for connections? Where is the need for solutions? And they come up with the early ideas of solutions. The second day, they come up with plans and they contact possible sponsors or they find resources. Sometimes the resources come from their own selves. They're great projects with, people finding their inner quality and making that into a skill that everyone can learn. Or it could be that someone knows someone who has a lot of material resources and they work with that. And by the third day, you can see in one area 10 to 20 projects, and they don't know what's going to happen, they will do it. And by the end of the week, there is a great premiere in movie theater. We are really lucky to have one of the biggest movie theater chains working with us now. And the whole community comes to the theater and they are seeing all these projects. It wasn't just, that people are saying that this would be nice happening, or this is a great idea. But it's that this was our observation with this group that we didn't even know each other just a few days ago, and this is what we've done. This is what you can do. It's always a challenge. It's not ours. There is no copyright. It's right to copy. Everything that GUTSY youth and you GUTSY people do, it's right to copy. I'm somewhere away from my notes, totally. Like always. Maybe I need to rehearse a little bit of Johanna's qualities. I want to tell you a story. We got few calls after that, after the first operation in this industrial town. And this was one. Actually, we have several research partners. One is the Finnish Youth Research Society. The other one is the Finnish Medical Society. They are really, really interested in how you can affect cynicism, because cynicism is a problem of our age, and it is something that we need to work with. And for cities and for governments and for businesses, cynicism is numbers. One cynical youth that won't find their way in their life might cost about half a million to 1 million to a society. So if you look at the numbers, I'm not so much interested in the cost of a human being, but if you look at the numbers, it starts to be a really interesting thing for companies, for societies, for cities. And we were suggested to go to maybe one of the toughest neighborhoods in Finland. This is a neighborhood where the unemployment rate is 45, where in 1 year, in the close vicinity of the school, 4 people were murdered, where you can think in each family there is one person that is sitting on a sofa because they don't find their way in an ordinary life. And we were called to do this full inclusive experience with this city. Started with the 14-year-olds. And what we always meet every time that you are in this situation, that there are 200 youth or 400 youth or 100 youth, is that before this moment starts, the first seconds, when you look at the eyes of people and you still don't know them, but you have to believe in the people, because you have to make some kind of connection. And if you are not real, the youth, you will lose it immediately. You know, they are so blunt that if you are putting up a show, they will just take their mobile phones and that's it. You don't make any connection. And what happens right before those seconds that this intervention, GUTSY intervention starts, there's always adults that come and they are, hey, welcome, it's nice that you're here, great. Is everything okay? Is the screen and whatever is working? And so, you know, there is this youth that is really difficult, tough case that I hope you can work with. And they always name, you know, about 5 to 10 youngsters that are really tough, and they are kind of consoling us and the group that don't worry if you can't work with them. We can then take them and, you know, arrange something else for them. And I want to tell a story of one of these guys. I asked permission. Actually, I called him that, can I show your picture to this group and tell your story? Meet Ronnie, 14 years old. Our first encounter with Ronnie was that we had just come to the school and he was having a total media event created by himself. He had stolen tampon from one of the girls there, who was just totally pissed off, and sticking in his nose and running around and, you know, having this social media feed, live feed. He was controlling the whole community, you know, and he was great. You know, is there anyone that recognizes himself or herself from Ronnie's kind of mindset? Okay, we have one, we have two Ronnies here. Great. You know, I think the Ronnies of the world, they have very, very special inner quality, and that's kind of the explosive readiness to get inspired, you know, to become happy about. But they might also be very critical for many things, and especially for adults, they just don't often give damn for what the adults think. And I was like seeing Ronnie there and Ronnie here, and the teachers saying that, you know, he's a bit tough. And what the teachers started to do, they started to bet that how long Ronnie will stay in the group. When you start this GUTSY GO thing, you know, I bet he won't be there more than 5 minutes. And usually when we have certain profile, which is not our inner self, but it's something that people think we are, we work towards that also. We have kind of like inhaled that profile ourselves. We believe that, yes, that's who we are, and we deliver. We always deliver. And the youth also. If someone says that you are a troublemaker, definitely you will deliver. And Ronnie was delivering to the fullest with live broadcast for everyone. Inclusion. Super inclusive. Except, of course, when you stick someone's tampon, it's very, you know, it might be shameful in those ages, and some of the girls weren't included in this show and so on. But what happened was exactly, we started the whole operation, the school was stopped and we had all these groups and there was this great challenge and observations of society and whatever. Ronnie was there for 5 minutes and left the room. But you know, everyone has a weak spot. Every single person, it might be different, but every single person has a weak spot from which they want to be engaged. And for Ronnie, it was a cup of coffee with adults and mano-a-mano talk. He was that kind of guy that came from a little bit of a macho background. And later on, when we got to know Ronnie better, I was talking about his father and all this stuff, so I really understood, because my background is a bit from that culture as well. And some minutes, cup of coffee, mano a mano, and Ronnie was back to the group. And to everyone's surprise, Ronnie became one of the most active contributors in his group. They had this great idea of granny rescue team, granny pet rescue team. Their simple idea was that there's so many elderly people that are alone, that we need to do something. What is our resource? We all have pets. Well, let's take the pets and go and rescue these grannies. And this is Ronnie's My Printer moment. What happened is probably that, first of all, I'm predicting that Ronnie, in just a few days, found one of his inner qualities. And no one had realized that he has this quality. He hadn't realized it himself. We didn't realize it. It was because of the group action, not of the group discussion, not of the individual discussions, but the group action, that there was kind of place for this inner quality to come out. And what happened then in the premiere, in the end of the week, everyone was watching this. And suddenly there's this magical, electrical moment that's one of the girls who were, top grades and hates Ronnie's because they spoil their school life, totally. And you start to study and you want to do your work and so on. And, it's awful. One of them just bursted and said that this is the first time I get this guy. I thought he was a total jerk. She just said this. And later on, Ronnie is texting to the Facebook group, to the WhatsApp group, where everyone is included, that I feel like crying. And that's a mistake. If a guy like that starts to talk about crying, you're about to lose your position right away. But that's not what happened. What happened was that everyone had been doing their projects and showing to each other, and suddenly one of the other tough guys texted, well, why don't you cry? Isn't that what this is about? Show your emotions. And someone was asking that, what do you mean? And Ronnie was texting that, well, this is the first time that people like what I do. That was his printer moment. I was asking a few months ago that what are you doing now? You're past the primary school and so on. And he said that, yeah, I'm studying nursery. The guy who we were warned about, who people said that 5 minutes and you lose him, but don't worry, because we've been here for 9 years and we couldn't do anything. What have we learned during these journeys to different cities and from the projects that the youth have come up with and the great courage that the youth have had? Courage to cooperate with all people. What is kind of the anatomy of peace? What are the essentials of peacemaking? One is this: everyone is a mine, rich in gems. We have two possibilities. Either we think that, okay, there is two dogs in you. There is the good dog and the bad dog, and today I'm seeing the bad dog. And I hate your bad dog. Or we can see that, okay, you are a mine, rich in gems, and I just don't know yet what are the gems. And actually, what makes people humble is that when they start to understand that we don't even know our own gems. And actually, I think that there's no way for us to know by ourselves our own gems. It's kind of like a spiritual law of the world, that alone we don't find our own inner qualities. It's always in inclusive communication that we start to realize something of ourselves, and where we can choose whether we are true to ourselves and why we are. Second thing, everyone has voice that counts. In any community, in the workplaces, I've been working with many companies and many groups, teams, and it's always the same. If I would ask you to, maybe you can tell what is the third thing. What is the third thing I will say? There's immediately 2 or 3 that will put their hands up because they've used to contribute. They've used to word out their ideas. And then there is definitely 5 or 6 that would never, raise them. But maybe in this group, it's a special group. People have come here to contribute and to share. But if you go to an ordinary group, there is always a lot of people that have decided that I will not share anything because someone else knows better, or my ideas are still at the weak stage and someone has cultivated their ideas to much more, developed stage, and it's better that they say and I'm quiet. But what we've learned is that those groups that don't think like this, but they think that actually it's like knitting and fabric, that you need all the voices. They are the ones that come up with new ideas. They are the ones who actually realize something of what's happening there and what are the needs. And often it is not people like me that have lots of experience of talking that should be voicing their ideas and their understanding or their perception. For example, in the Ronnie's group, it wasn't Ronnie that came up with the idea. It was one girl that just had an experience of lambs because he came from a farm. And no one was interested in her ideas, but then he was going through these lamb selfies. He had these most amazing lamb selfies, and we started to watch these lamb selfies, and someone said that, hey, show to us, and we were like, what? They're all like same. And no, she was saying, no, they are not like same, and we were starting to look at their eyes, and they're all different. These lambs, they are different, they have different, attitudes and so on, and she started to talk about this, and that was the kind of the sidetrack from which the Granny Pet Rescue project got its idea. Later on, it was so successful that 500,000 Finns watched the video. There was many people who wanted to do the same pet rescue thing and so on. But it was because of this inclusive atmosphere where people say things that are not ready yet. They share. And this is, I think we all should encourage this in our peers. And we can't encourage them by, forcing. Often it needs us to be quiet. It's something that you encourage by not saying, but by, something like that. Third, everyone has a mission. We always talk that everyone could have a mission, or we could have a mission, but actually everyone has a mission. And this is an idea that when you go with this, it suddenly, makes everyone important. Fourth, everyone is a connector. People are so different in their ways to feel each other or connect or, look in their eyes. There is one thing that in Finnish culture we really need to develop that is our eye contact. There's so many young people that, and adults I think as well. I mean, all of you have a great eye contact, but when you go to an ordinary group, people they have difficulties with eye contact. And again and again, we experience through encouraging people to use their eyes. Not because, from the point of view that, we don't know that when you go on this operation, and you have this great idea as a group, and you will go and meet these people, it might be, that my eyes they just don't make the connection, but it's your eyes. So we need them, we need your eyes. And when you start to talk that what is the first stage in anything where you want to build peace? What is the first thing? When you start building peace, what do you need to build? Okay, now the guys and girls who don't answer, raise your hands.
Trust.
Exactly. Trust. Trust is the first thing in anything when you want to cooperate. Well, what's the first and easiest vessel of building trust?
Perhaps being vulnerable to yourself, opening up.
Yes? I think that's kind of the deeper inner quality and courage of being vulnerable.
For me.
Yeah, yeah.
It disarms the other person.
And what's the kind of like physical means to convey that? Eye contact.
Handshake and a smile.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
intentional.
yeah. Eye contact is very, very powerful. And some of the youth, you know, when you look in their eyes, and you can play with this, you know, you can say that, watch me. I bet you can't, you know, or some other way that, you know, that there is something in you that we can see from your eyes that is very special and it's strength for this. So there's many ways of kind of bring this motivation for youth to use their eyes. And again and again and again we see youth that have had difficulties in approaching people, just understanding this idea that it's connecting, being a connector is not about, you know, these type of people. Hello, we have lots of experience of talking, handshaking, hugging, I love you, hello. It's not difficult. This is not difficult. Yes. You know, some people it's very difficult for them. Hello, hello. You know, it's very tough. But you don't need to be like this stereotypical connector. And some people that when you're trying to build trust, they can't connect with you if you are just this kind of person. Maybe it is, you know, just your look that opens all the possibilities for the whole group to do the project. Because it's just you. And some of the youth, they start to think about this. Wow, it's wonderful. I want to try that. And most often, they will get the result. And everyone is a peace builder. I want to finish with one of the projects, one of the 100. It was a very interesting one because it wasn't the most obvious one. It was in eastern Finland. Someone said, no, this is in Espoo, in south. One of the youth was telling that maybe had connections to people in jail and said that it's very difficult to, when you come back to normal society, to integrate. Inclusion is very difficult. And they tackled this issue.